Hello, welcome to the Junior Achiever Rising Achievers Advisory Board. Present is the Future conversation with rising leaders. We will get started in about 5 minutes. Thank you. Well, good afternoon. My name is Jason Lee. I'm the president and CEO of Junior Achievement of Southeastern Michigan. And this is day 4 of our 4-part series of the Junior Achievement Rising Achievers Advisory Board. President is our future conversation with leaders. This has been an exciting opportunity, exciting event for us. And just a wealth of information. And before we get started, I just want to thank our sponsors. First of all, our supporting sponsors, the Siegfried Group, PwC, our contributing sponsors, Griffith and Kilgren, and DT Energy, and our presenting sponsors for this series, Ernst & Young, EY, DESC, and GM Financial. We can't do the work of junior achievement without the support of organizations such as these, as well as the volunteers that help provide our programming to young people. As our mission is to inspire, prepare young people to succeed in the global economy, having volunteers from our community to support and engage our work is life-changing for many of the young people that we service. So I just want to thank all of our sponsors and thank you for being here today with us. This event is part of our Rising Achievers Advisory Board, and we have here David Jackson, who's our president of the RAB, to give some brief remarks. David, take it away.
Yes, thank you, Jason, and likewise, thank you to the sponsors, everybody who's contributed to it, whether it's financially, with your time, your resources, the behind the scenes folks. I know that we've done a lot of work behind the scenes to put this on, so thank you. To get to where we are now, I want to take you back in history a little bit, and just 5 years. 5 years ago, the leadership team of Junior Achievement recognized a gap, and their board is littered with kind of a who's who of Detroit executives, CEOs, presidents. If you look there now, you'll see everybody on there is a high net worth individual, and overall, the baby boomer generation is the highest net worth generation ever. And so they saw a gap between those with the experience and the funds and the young professionals who kind of had the energy, the new ideas, that fresh insight that really kind of livens up any room. And so RAB was created to bridge that gap, to give the young professionals and put them in the same room as those that are already professionals, to create mentoring opportunities, to provide for the youth, to teach financial literacy. And so what the RAP has been doing through these past three to 5 years is doing this Off the Island event. The Off the Island event is created to bring policy conference to the local areas. I know young professionals, they want to get involved in policy, they want to understand it, but they may not have the resources to drive up, for example, to up North Michigan for the Mackinac Policy Conference. And so the Off the Island was a chance for these individuals to talk to the same type of individuals that will be presenting at the policy conferences, to have the same type of macro conversations. And so throughout this week, we have been able to transition a little bit and tackle some of the social and political changes of our time. And so it's been awesome to kind of see and experience that change in that aspect. And so quickly to recap the last 3 days, and before I introduce our keynote for today, the business on entrepreneurship. And if you've been with us throughout the week, I always leave tidbits on what I've learned. For the first 2 days, I gave you some, but I'll give you some new. So listen closely. The first day, business and entrepreneurship, Andrew, Mark, and Regina, they left me with The Originals. It is a book called The Originals, How Nonconformers Rule the World. So if you have not heard of that, check it out. I actually Googled it on Amazon, and it's something that is near and dear to my heart because I am certainly a nonconformer. On day 2, we had wealth generation and financial literacy. Some of the people were mentioned on Forbes year in and year out, and the knowledge that was shared on that day was beyond me. And one of the things that I walked away with on that day is start small, start now and start small. Even if it isn't much, even if you can't put away more than 10, 15 bucks, start now. Yesterday, we had Detroit Employment Solutions talk about workforce readiness. And getting a job is always going to be important, whether you're a business and entrepreneurship. You still need to have some type of funds rolling in until you are stable and that $5 million company or Jeff Bezos, so to speak. So on day 3, workforce readiness, the things I walked away with is focus on relationships. Your network will tell you your net worth. Harness the world, but be willing to listen and learn. So with that, be aggressive. Be yourself, but be aggressive in your goals. And then, as I just mentioned, be yourself. In this environment where there's everybody with a good GPA, or a lot of people at least with a good GPA, it's easy to fall into the crowd. Don't forget to be yourself, but do it professionally. And that's through social media and all type of platforms. And so with that being said, that's been our week thus far. And we are going to drop it off and leave it to Eric Thomas, Chief Storyteller for the City of Detroit, to kind of culminate the event and bring it all together. So with that, I'll let Eric take it away.
All right. Shockingly enough, I'm never going to tell you to be professional. So I'm glad they gave you the advice because I'm going to be the bad guy. Okay, so I appreciate being here. I'm glad. I'm honored to have been called. I looked at the list of speakers and I was like, you guys want me to keynote this with all these people that are in the ranks? But I think I'm going to bring something a little different here today. And so I'm going to start with a little story about myself. And it's a story called I Didn't Plan This Life. Here's the thing. I was a young Black kid in the hood that always felt a little different, that always felt out of sync with everything. I like cartoons, but I like gangster rap music. I like fighting and I like doing math, right? It didn't necessarily make sense. And so as I grew and I began to get exposed to different things, I had a plan. From elementary school onward, I had a plan. I was going to go to MIT and be a robotic engineer. That was the plan for a long time. For like 15 years, that was the plan. But here's what happened somewhere in the middle. Somewhere in the middle, I got disillusioned with school. Whenever I asked, why am I supposed to be doing this homework? Why am I supposed to be doing these things? Why am I supposed to be acting good? I got the answer, because you should. And as what you could describe as a bit of a deviant, because you should was never a good enough answer for me. And so somewhere around 8th grade, going into 9th grade, I began to deviate from the plan. You see, I went into high school with some of the highest test scores in the city. I left high school with a 1.3 GPA. And I don't know if you guys know anything about the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, but you can't get into MIT with a 1.3 GPA. And so I listed, and I found myself just existing. And I floated and didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I was on a robotics team in high school. I still had interest in it, but I found myself at Henry Ford Community College, not doing anything I wanted to do. And then I found myself doing graphic design because I stumbled into it. And it hit me one day that I didn't know what the hell I wanted to do. And it didn't matter. And I think there's a conversation to be had about what happens when you get to a place where you don't know what you want to do and it doesn't matter to you either. But a strange thing happened. I was interning at Wayne County Community College and I was introduced to the entrepreneurship program. And I want to be very explicit when I say this. I did not want to be an entrepreneur. I am known as an entrepreneur. I did not want to go into it. Even as a kid, I would wear suits every day and take briefcases everywhere, but owning a business was not something I wanted to be involved in. Didn't sound interesting to me. Over the years, I was just going to where people told me I should go. I was a gifted kid. I speak well, and you speak well, you should go do this. And so I did what people were saying. And eventually I met my soon-to-be business partner. We were the same age, but he drove a Cadillac. He got up every day at 4 o'clock in the morning. He worked long hours at, a bank, and then he would come and leave the bank and he'd come work with me. And then he kind of assumed my business, right? My middling graphic design thing, which was basically just me freelancing, doing graphics whenever I felt like it between watching cartoons. And I noticed something. All the things that I wanted, he had. He had a nice car, a Cadillac. I've always wanted a Cadillac. He had a Cadillac. He had his own condo. He had all these things. And so I stopped talking to him and started watching him. And I noticed that there were things he was doing that yielded different results. When your business partner or the person who becomes your business partner is getting up every morning at 4 o'clock in the morning, you feel a little lazy getting up at 11 o'clock in the morning. I started to notice that the way he carried his energy into his work changed the outcomes. And me and my business partner are still very different people. The way we communicate, the way we engage, the nonsense things that I say on the internet, he is more private than me. But what I learned was the energy for success has to be consistent. And so what happened for me was throughout the course of time working with my business partner, and I started business when I was 19. I'm currently 33. I started to watch people and run into people and meet clients. And what I stopped doing was listening to their answers and watching their actions. And I discovered that there were a set of tools that you don't get. You don't learn them because people don't tell you them. You can only see it by observation. You can only look at what someone's outcomes are and think about what their environment is. And so what I really want to do is talk about environment, especially when we're talking about how we impact our youth, how we engage students, how we engage people to create environments so that people are successful. So there's a couple of things that I learned. I'm going to touch them lightly because we probably talked about this all week. But A, it was mentioned earlier. Networks are some of the most important things you can build. Not in a BS, facetious, pretend way. Some people say they don't do business with friends. I think those people aren't doing good business. Friends will shield you, support you, take care of you, connect you. Building friendships with people who have the same value proposition as you will fundamentally change your life. 2, bragging is a real skill. We have been trained to believe that being humble will save you. If you are humble and nice long enough and don't tell your story and don't peek up long enough, then eventually someone will find you, they will sprinkle fairy dust on you, and you will eventually become a wealthy person. But I've got terrible, terrible news. We don't celebrate none of the humble folks. Forgive me. Our president is Donald Trump. Our favorite rapper is Kanye West. If rap music is the #1 genre of music in the world, 89% of rap music is being a braggart, if you will, right? Telling people who you are and what you have. This doesn't mean be annoying. This means letting people know who you are, what your skills are, and how you can impact them for the better. This is not a I've got a nice car. This is a I've got a nice car to take you places. It's very different. And last, and this is the point that I want to get into and think about the most before I get into my small diatribe about environment. We talk a lot about talent, and I don't like the word talent. I think it's slightly offensive for 2 reasons. Growing up, I've always been considered talented because I speak this way, right? This weird amalgamation of ratchet and collegiate. And I'll say gangster stuff, but I can also switch into college mode, even though I dropped out of college. But here's the problem with the word talent. It has 2 incredibly negative outcomes. 1, it degrades the amount of work ethic that it requires to develop a skill. Incredible. Or when you see a great rapper or when you see a great basketball player, you don't see 20 years of struggle, of effort, of sweat, of blood, of missed shots, and of bad lines, and of failed delivery, and of falling off stages. You just see the outcomes. And talent makes it sound magical when it actually is work. The second thing it does that really makes me nervous is that it discourages people who don't succeed the first time. When you praise the outcomes, people who are standing around watching that without understanding of the ethic feel like, well, maybe that's not for me. You could be a quantum physicist, even if you feel like you're not good at math, if you spend the same amount of time on math. I believe that talent, all right, is simply being able to joyfully suffer, right? To spend the time and not be put off by the amount of work you need to put into practice and do the work every day. Things that happen when you tell a talented kid, someone who we've been telling they're talented all the time, when they run into a barrier that they can't surmount because it's not as easy as the previous things, it creates this tension where people feel like maybe that's not for me. And that is not necessarily true. And so if you take anything away from this diatribe today, I want us to learn how to praise the work and not just the outcomes. If you're going to talk about Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos, Robert Smith, Oprah, Malala Yousafzai, Viola Davis, Kobe Bryant, LeBron James, Lisa Leslie, if you're going to talk about where they are, we need to spend more time praising the hours and hours and hours of work that it required for them to get there. Kobe Bryant is not a talented, or was not a talented basketball player. Kobe Bryant was the hardest working basketball player next to Michael Jordan, who was the hardest working basketball player next to the person who was previous to them. And so when you see greats, you don't often see the study. And that to me is one of the most important things we need to talk about. When we go into creating environments for our young people to learn, we have to be careful about what we praise, because inadvertently we don't think about the things that we denigrate. Sometimes we need to think about how we praise the struggle, the effort, the engagement, and that would change what they go through. You know, young activists want to be Malala Yousafzai, but they don't want to get shot in the head, right? It is important to remember that people have gone through things to earn their status. And if we want to be great, we have to go through similar trials. Last point, as we go into environment, because I know I'm going to get asked a bunch of questions about my business, so I don't want to go into that. But this is my last point. We have to raise our expectations of the community around us and our youth, which would then raise our aspirations. We have a survival aspiration when we should have a thriving aspiration. And when you raise aspiration, it inversely raises expectation. If I expect you to become great, you expect me to provide you with the tools to become great. And so you push back. That tension is the tension we need to have successful communities. When we tell our kids, we want you to be a great astrophysicist, well, they're going to say, then I need the books to do so. And then we show the environment where kids are successful, where economists are successful. When we have conversations about Bill Gates growing up in the home with a computer in the 50s, you have to have well, it wasn't in his home, but it was down the street. When you have someone growing up with access to technology, then you can have a conversation about what do we need to create a springboard for opportunity. And so if I was a young person today and my family had an expectation of success from me, I would have an expectation of support from them. And that is how I think about our environment and how we tell stories about what our opportunities are. I have always been fortunate to have a family that expected great things from me, even when I didn't expect great things from myself. But everyone doesn't have that. As people in the community who believe in the ubiquity of talent, that people could make it if only they were given the opportunity. It's our job to extend those opportunities and have the expectations that people will rise to expectations and not judge people if they fall and stumble, because sometimes it happens publicly, but it always happens privately. Our job is to create the environment for success to happen. That is my little mini rant before they go in here and start asking me questions. I just wanted to get that off my chest, because if we talk about junior achievement, asking ourselves, what does achievement mean? Especially for our children and for our next generation and for this generation and for our mentors, right? You talk about the baby boomers, you talk about Gen X. What are you expecting us to do? And what do we need in the context of the world that we now live in to rise to the expectations that you have? With that being said, come harass me, ask me all the questions in America.
Awesome. Let me unmute myself first. Thank you for that, Eric. Before I start harassing you and asking these personal questions to bring it out of you, I wanted to announce the raffle winner. And so before I announce them, the raffle winner won LinkedIn coaching for one person from Brenda Meller of Meller Marketing. This includes 2-hour virtual session, review of your LinkedIn profile, tips on how to optimize your presence on LinkedIn, a profile resource guide, and a 30-minute accountability check-in 1 month later. The certificate is valued at upwards of $400, and it can be used now through March 31st, 2021. And the winner is, emphatic drum roll, is Katrina Moss. And so Katrina Moss was a pre-registrant, and she will have an email in her inbox with that certificate. Congratulations, Katrina. And so, Eric, now on to you.
Brenda's good at LinkedIn, y'all. I'm telling you. I watched her blow up. I seen it happen.
Excellent plug. I too have heard great things, and like we said, it's upwards of $400 value for free, and so I hope Katrina takes advantage of that. So, Eric, this entire week we've been talking about the pillars of junior achievement, budgets, etc. I guess from a financial literacy perspective, what is one thing that you have learned along the way, or a way that you have bumped your head that you wish you would have not, or you would not have done in hindsight, in particular from that financial literacy budget aspect?
The first time I made any money, I just burned it. I think that always is the story. New money is fast money. You set it on fire. There is you could almost call it like a poverty mentality. I grew up kind of poor. And there's this idea that money is this fleeting thing. And if you don't use it now, you might not have it again. And when I switched my thinking to realize that money is not only a tool, but it will continue to come as long as I do the things it requires to get it, I can plan for it moving forward. I wasn't planning for it moving forward because I didn't think it would ever be there in the future. I had to spend it right now. And so long-term planning happened after I gave up my emotional attachment to a tool. It's almost like being emotionally attached to a hammer. Money is simply a tool. It's an important tool, but knowing that you can leverage it and then say, okay, I could just eat. I could go grocery shopping this month and then eat this and then save this and then put this towards something that will then get me some money. For instance, I do graphic design. It makes me a lot more money to spend $50 on Photoshop per month than to spend it on McDonald's, because I can make $2,000-$3,000 on Photoshop versus if I consume it. So looking at it as a way to get things that I can invest to use for the future really changed the dynamic of my relationship with money. That was my financial literacy lesson.
No, that's a good point. And like I said yesterday, I'm a CPA, and so that's near and dear to my heart. And one of my points yesterday was specifically making a budget, but then planning with that budget, having a game plan for that budget. So it's good to hear you kind of reinforce that message. I guess taking it from an entrepreneurship standpoint, what would you say that you wish you would have known, you wish you would have learned? I know you mentioned a story about your business partner, but I would imagine there have been other business ventures that may not have worked out. And so what's one thing that you wish you would have learned?
First of all, almost all of my business ventures hadn't worked out, right? That's the game plan.
Of course.
One thing to me that was really important to realize was that happens. We spend so much time. That's why I talked about this idea of talent. You look at people successful and you think, wow, they had a great idea. When you realize that most people's great ideas are just cobbled together good parts of all their failed ideas. And that's what I didn't realize, that I could do a bunch of things and fail at them and then take those pieces and create things that are great. My last agency saga came out of my Storyteller, my marketing agency, a branding thing, my graphic design time, my speaking engagements. And I took all of the pieces that I loved about all of those things and then created the most successful business I had been a part of. That's not saying that business was as successful as I wanted it to be, right? We're still doing things, it's still growing. But I know my next move will be my best move. And that was a business lesson that I didn't understand. Once again, getting emotionally attached to something that doesn't necessarily need the emotion. Right, I was emotionally attached to the idea that I should be successful the first time. And once again, you fail a couple of times and it kind of beats it out of you. Oh,
I definitely agree. And being an entrepreneur myself, I've ran up against many walls. And so I guess,
you know what? I have one more thing to add to that. This is another thing. It just hit me.
Please do.
The thing I wish I would have known is that when you operate a business, very rarely are you supposed to be doing the thing that the business does, right? An entrepreneur has a particular skill set. This is a breakdown I think is very important. I'm a graphic designer, I do graphic design. A business owner does have a skill, like an entrepreneur, a serial entrepreneur. And that skill, in my opinion, is to create processes that consistently and residually return value. That is the entrepreneur skill. You could drop that person in a coal mine or in a tech startup, and they would look at those things. They would say, how do I create processes that derive value for the lowest input to get the most maximum reward out of that? That is the thing I didn't realize about being an entrepreneur. That skill is a skill that I lacked, and it's a talent that you can learn through repetition in the same way you learn to draw.
So what would you have to say to the entrepreneurs who say, I don't need to work a 9 to 5. I don't need to do that. Let me just go be an entrepreneur. Let me devote all my time into growing my business. What would you tell them?
Do you, dog? Here's the thing. And this is really important feature. I've done that. This job I have now is the first job I've had in 10 years. But what you have to do is you have to create the environment to survive. And you have to be okay with certain things. For instance, in the place that I live now, that I fortunately pay my bills on time now, I had about 15 to 20 eviction notices. I'm so good at eviction court, it's ridiculous, right? I am okay with going to eviction court. I am okay with coming home and my lights being off sometimes. I'm okay with looking at my refrigerator and going, I guess I'm gonna have sleep for dinner today, right? I'm okay with those things. If you are not okay with those things, then sometimes you have to create another option for yourself. There's no shame in having a 9 to 5 to subsidize the lifestyle and the business that you're trying to grow. The real secret is understanding what you are willing to deal with. And I think that to me is the primary question. If you got kids and you don't want your kids to be hungry and you don't know if the business is gonna blow up, keep that 9 to 5. If you have enough saved that you know my family's gonna eat for the next 6 months, then cool. But I want to remind everybody that most businesses don't really return all that money for 3 to 5 years. So if you don't have 3 to 5 years saved, you might really want to consider what your options are.
Those are great points. That's not something that I considered when I kind of made my leap of faith before getting to where I am in life. And like you said, when you have kids and significant others and you throw those in the mix, it just makes everything more confusing. So that's a great point. I think you can't go wrong with your own path, but definitely just choose wisely and think about all the ramifications.
Think about what you're willing to take. I say it all the time. Think about what you're willing to take. Everybody, I want to be like them. You're not willing to get shot, bro. You're not willing to be 50 Cent. And if you're not, that's fine, right? I think another thing we do is we cast our aspirations onto the success of others. I think I should want to be successful like that. When really, maybe you just want to have a business that sustains your lifestyle and takes care of your family. There's no shame in that either. You don't have to want to be Jeff Bezos. You don't have to want what other people want you to want. And so that, in my opinion, is something that I've been like that for a long time. I actually had to discover in other people that their aspirations were based on what other people wanted them to want.
Definitely. You mentioned in your story having high expectations of yourself and your family, even when you didn't, your family did. Yeah. There's some youth listening right now whose family may not have those high expectations set for them. What advice would you give to them to kind of motivate them and set their own expectations high and maintain it?
So this is what I used to do when I was younger and crazy. I would create visions of what I wanted to be. I would spend all my days on Sotheby Realty, which, they sell $10 million homes. And I would go to jamesedition.com and see what a used Rolls Royce is going for these days. And if you asked me at that time, I could tell you, I could rattle it off right now. There's this stupid Instagram meme post that goes around. It says, Bentleys and Rolls Royces don't advertise. You should advertise. Let me tell you why that's dumb. Because Bentleys and Rolls Royces do advertise. They just don't advertise to you. If you are reading the right magazines, you're going to find those advertisements. And so I would spend my time in those advertisements. And when I got into marketing, I started realizing that advertisements are created based upon who they expected the reader to be. So when I was reading those books, I would say, who would I be if this ad was for me? What would I have? What would my expectations of myself be? And that was one of the ways. The second thing I did was I cobbled together mentors. I haven't really found a person that has all the components of what I'm looking for in a person. I found enough crazy people that, they are willing to take incredible risks. I found a lot of stable people. So I've Frankenstein myself mentors, right? A little bit of Bill Gates over here, a little bit of Jeff Bezos over here, a little bit of Oprah over here, a little bit of Tyler Perry, but not the union busting, right? Like a little bit of these different groups of people that I admire. And I start saying, I want that component, right? And how did they develop that component? Not the rest of it, just the component that I aspire to be like. And so that's what I would do when faced with that. And I was also fortunate. I have an aunt and uncle in Maryland who live a very different lifestyle. And so when I visited them, it changed my vantage point. But when I wasn't there, the other 10 months out of the year, other 11 months out of the year, I would create my own vision of what I wanted my life to be.
Yeah, that's a great point. And Jeff on day 2, he mentioned build a team. It doesn't matter what you're a professional in, what you're good at. You cannot do everything. And I know I struggle with that. Going back to school time and time again, trying to get different things under my belt, trying to build up my team and do it all myself. But at the same time, you need to build up that team.
I mean, build a team of people that inspire you, right? Like, I'm so fortunate to have friends that just inspire me every day. That I look at them and go, damn, that's sweet. Like, that's amazing. Like, so you can really rap, huh? Like, oh, so you really are a business person. Oh, you made $1 million this month? That's nuts, right? And when you have people who are close to you, like I said, my business partner was my real first taste of that. Not seeing somebody in the distance, but seeing somebody show up every day. When your team, when your close people are showing up every day, you either get in line or you eject. And I didn't want to eject, so I tried to fall in line. I haven't solved all the problems. I've got weirdness that I'm working through myself, but I'm a different person than I was.
Yeah, great point. Moving into a little bit of this workforce readiness. Recently in the news, a CEO mentioned that there was not a large pool of diverse talent. I guess what would be your take on that, or what has been your experience over the years being an entrepreneur and a business owner?
You tripping? I mean, not only is that hilarious, it really shows to the lack of effort people want to put into finding talent, right? If we have a talent pipeline issue that no one wants to fix, and we also have, this is what I think the secret is, and forgive me if I'm going off script. When you have a homogenous group of people, right? A group of people who are the same. They think like you, they act like you, they feel the same things as you. They can act as they were acting. They can make jokes that they were making. They don't have to change very much. There are different jokes you make in a room full of guys and you make in a room with 50% women. There are jokes you make in a room full of white guys in a room that's full of 50% women and people of color, and 75% people of color. Then you realize, dang, I can't really say that. And so it's easier to say, let's take a group of these people out to dinner, see which one of them we enjoy their company. They seem to fit in with our nonsense. Boom, this is our talent group. It has nothing to do with can you do things. We learn most of our work on the job anyways. We train every single person that comes out of college. Every single person that comes out of college when they get into a position. The question becomes, do we like that person? Do we like that person, and can we find that talent, are two fundamentally different problems. And I think we need to have a real conversation about, are you saying you can't find anyone? Have you never heard of an HBCU? Have you never heard of entrepreneurs that run financial business? You can hire an entrepreneur. Stop pretending you can't find a small business owner that has a CPA firm and then say, look, bro, I'm going to give you all this plus this and buy your business. And you have that talent. But do you want to? And I think that becomes the conversation. It's not always the CEO's fault. It's the headhunter's fault. It's the HR folks' fault. How are you building your talent pipelines? That is my rebuttal to that. It annoyed the crap out of me when I saw it. And so that's why I had all that wound up.
No problem.
But it happens in design too. I do marketing. They say the same nonsense. They can't find anybody who's brown to do marketing, but all culture is driven by Black people in America. Right. So it makes it like, so you can't find anyone to help you do marketing or design or music or art and culture. That seems weird. It seems like we drive the entire creative economy. And have been since 1842. But what can you do?
Sticking with workforce readiness, one of the points that I made earlier is that you have to sell yourself and kind of sell your brand. Clearly, you have sold yourself to become the chief storyteller for the city of Detroit, a position that I may or may not have ever heard of before. So you clearly sold yourself to somebody to get that position. So what advice do you have for those trying to build their brand?
I did not apply for this job. This job found me based upon the work that I've done before. I will say this. I wrote a blog about it. I believe the concept of being humble is killing us. The idea that we should wait for someone to notice us when there is 7.3 billion people in the world is absolutely bonkers. Okay, I'm gonna flip it a little bit. The level of arrogance you have to believe that someone is going to notice you out of all these people that are jumping up and down and screaming for attention is absolutely bananas. And so for me, I remember I would think things and it would come out in the news. I'd be like, dang, I should have told somebody that I thought that. So I started writing. Like I dropped out of college. I don't know how to use commas. I'm learning now. But I would just start writing my thoughts. Like, hey, y'all, just so I could reference back to it. Like, see, I told y'all. Eventually, they started to gain traction. I think you see this, and like, I think the TikTok demographic knows this very well. You can ride a wave or create a wave. But either way, you need to be a part of a wave. I think branding is something that comes innately to younger millennials and Gen Z. Here's the thing, though. Operate in the mode of things you want people to believe about you. Do you want people to believe that you are a storyteller? When I built the frame or the term storyteller for myself, it was because I didn't have any other way to codify all of the things I did. I did graphics, marketing, messaging, writing, now photography. I'm learning music. I'm practicing piano. I'm a public speaker. I've done poetry. I freestyle. I do all kind of stuff. And it was, what is that? And so when I started saying storyteller, I started being specific about it. I would say, I am a storyteller. I can help you tell your story. That's it. And however we figured out how to do it from that point forward, that's how we're going to do it. Well, Eric, how did you build your brand? I told everybody that's who I was. I promise you. I don't know who's old enough to remember when Lil Wayne was the greatest rapper alive, but when Lil Wayne started saying he was the greatest rapper alive, Lil Wayne was not the greatest rapper alive. But he said it in every song, and eventually he became the greatest rapper alive. T.I. did the same thing. Sometimes you have to convince you and the world of who you want to be. That's my short on it. How do you do it? Consistency. Keep doing it, keep saying it, and operate in the mode of somebody who is that. Once again, Lil Wayne as a reference. Lil Wayne didn't just say he was the greatest rapper alive. He dropped a mixtape like every month. He was rapping all the time, right? Once again, it's not just the outcomes, it's the process. Do it all the time. And eventually, people will see you are who you said you are. And if people don't believe you, that just means you need to work a little bit harder.
Those are great points as well. I think those were mentioned. If not day one, day two, I shared it. Write it down, share it, envision it, and it will happen. Goal setting. That's right in my notes. So we must have practiced this beforehand because you're hitting all my points that I spoke about.
It's synergy.
Center, exactly. Circling back on generational wealth building and financial literacy, and I don't want to get too much into the specifics about your estate planning or things like that, but do you have any comments or any pieces of advice, words of advice for those who have that thought that, well, I don't need a will. I'm not there. I don't have enough money. It's not really important or applicable to me.
I have been broke for most of my natural adult life. And I told you I had an unhealthy relationship with my emotional attachment to the money. I would just either not spend anything I had or spend it all. If I had $50, I'd spend the whole $50, right? I was like, I don't know when I'm gonna eat steak. I'm gonna eat steak right now. One of the most important things you can do if you don't have the best relationship with money is create relationship with people who do. If you can't manage your money, there are people who do that. I believe in getting help to do things you're not great at until you build the capacity to do that. And if you don't ever want to build capacity, then don't. Get with somebody that you trust and get with some other people that you can trust to tell you if you can trust that person if you don't know exactly how to vet that person. Honest to God, right? Like, I don't know how to pick a stockbroker, but my business partner does. And so you get with somebody you trust that seems to be successful. And you have that. What I've been learning for this first year in life that I've ever had any money to do anything with, and put paintings up and everything, is I spend a lot of time investing in my own peace of mind. Right? I invest in the stock market of things that I buy. I buy things that make me feel better, not in a gluttonous, like feel the whole of depression type of way. But in like, I don't have to leave my house and go out and party because I feel good at home. And it's given me the ability to then put the money aside because I don't have to go seek external validation. I don't have to go spend it. I learned how to cook so I wouldn't have to keep going to restaurants. And I started to invest in myself in a way that gives me the space to have money to put in places. And then once again, finally, and then when you start having the little bit of change left over, now it's time to go to people who are smart enough to know how to make that money work and make it grow for you in a strategic way. And this is super important. That's what rich people do. Rich people got people handling their money. They be like, look, how much money do I got? You asked Dan Gilbert, he didn't know how much money he had. He was like, I don't know, somebody else handle that.
Definitely.
Okay.
The Fords, everybody, if you really get to that level, you have a family office and they handle all those affairs.
Yeah. The thing is, back to our like poverty mindset, you know how when your grandma give you money, she give it to you in your palm and then you like hide it and you can't tell nobody. We really have an unhealthy relationship with money. It's very secretive. You can't tell people how much money you had. I used to talk on Facebook all the time about how broke I was all the time. My lights were out, whatever was going on. And I would have people say, Eric, you can't tell people that you're broke. And I was like, why? I am broke. Right? And now I'm not broke. And I'm doing well. And that is the reality of my life. Our relationship with money is so strange because we tie our income to our self-worth and our actual value as a person in the world. And we need to decouple those things so we can look at the money objectively, so we can tell people how much money we have, how much money we want, and ask them, how do we get to the place that we want to be?
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. Sounds like you have embodied all the points that I said about workforce yesterday, focusing on relationships, being aggressive, and then selling yourself. Like, you literally did all that to get this chief storyteller role. And so I guess my next question is, what, at some point, other than mentors and people pouring into you, you had to have gleaned some information from other resources, books, podcasts, etc. And even to this day, I would imagine you're still learning. What would be some podcasts that people can look toward, books that they can read to kind of gain some of this knowledge?
I am deeply, deeply a YouTuber. I'm not even ashamed to admit it. I'm not a reader. I don't read a lot. I sound like I read a lot because I watch a lot, right? So my intonation and my understanding of vocabulary has come from watching people say things. From a young kid, I watched the Discovery Channel and the Learning Channel on up to now. In the year our Lord 2020, there is nothing you can't learn from the internet other than being a surgeon, right? You may need to do some practice with a doctor to be a surgeon.
I built a deck in my house, in the back of the house, last month, and I'm not handy by any means. YouTube.
It's a real thing. I spend time watching. I don't even know the name of all the channels I watch. I watch pop culture breakdowns. I watch philosophers online, people like Folding Ideas, who breaks down, what culture means in context. There's a show on YouTube called Wisecrack, which looks at, and once again, I'm nerdy, right? So I like shows and cartoons and stuff. And he looks at shows and cartoons and he breaks it down in the context of philosophers like Kant and all these other guys from, 17th century Germany and Sigmund Freud and all these sorts of things. So you understand the cyclical nature of humanity, but in the context of the media that we watch today. I don't like to pretend to be sophisticated. I am a simple dude who likes to learn. And so if there is a channel or a program on YouTube that has credible and reputable sources that can cite their sources, that makes sense in the context of the world that we understand, right? There's a lot of conspiracy theories and nonsense going on right now. And so I think it's important that you're able to vet the sources of the information that you're getting. That's how I learn. Another way I learn, and this is really random, but I like to argue with smart people. I put points out there that I genuinely believe, and then smart people come from all sides of the aisle and tell me that I'm an idiot. I'm sure Jason has done that before. But I hang around with people like Jason who's smarter than me. And so if I say something, he goes, I don't think that's how that works, dog. Then, or my homie who just passed, Marlo Stoudemire, was good for that. He would pull me aside and be like, dog, that's not the facts. And so keeping people around you who will sharpen you, that has been probably the secret to my success. I just crave being the dumbest person in a room, right? If I feel like I'm too smart, I will get with a Jason and he will get me together.
Where do you find these people though?
Okay. This is the secrets. All right. So everybody take the notes. This is a real secret. I learned this from another business partner that I had. He would walk in the room so confidently that people wouldn't question why he was there, whether he had a ticket or not. He would just walk into the rooms. This is how I met Dan Gilbert. True story. I got into an event I wasn't supposed to be at because I was so confident that I was supposed to be there. The tickets were like $1,000. I didn't have no ticket, but I had been meeting all these people. When I see people that seem like they've got the answers, I talk to them. So one of these really incredibly wealthy 100-millionaire type dudes was walking out, but he knew me. So he goes, Eric. And I go, I forget his name, but I remember that time. I was like, yo, what's going on, man? They said I don't have a ticket. He goes, well, he's got to have a ticket. That's Eric. They go, are you sure? He goes, must. I said, cool. Walk in there. Boom. I'm in a room with multimillionaires because you can tell where they are. They have signs up. Then I see a swarm of multimillionaires swirling around a guy. I said, well, who are these millionaires swirling around? We're in a room full of Bentleys and Rolls Royces. So the only person they could be swirling around has to be worth more than them. I peered through the center and it's Dan Gilbert. I was like, well, I got to go talk to Dan. Now, you know how people get weird. Everybody's so cool. They don't want to talk to people because you're too cool. You don't want to look thirsty. You got me messed up. I walked through the crowd of people, right? Straight through it. And then somebody reached out to stop me. People are non-confrontational. So I was like, oh, excuse me. So I hit him with the juke move. Step forward, was like, hey, man, how's it going? What's going on, Dan? I will let you know that I appreciate the work you've been doing. Had a good conversation. You know what I'm saying? Been on first name basis ever since, right? I didn't ask him for anything. But when I see people who do great work, I beeline towards them. I made one of my, if you could call it a mentor, right? Who went through all of my branding work, who does global and international work. I saw him on a panel and I just waited for him, walked right up to him. And from that point, he's been critiquing my work ever since. That's been about 10 years. And so to me, it's identifying places where those type of folks would be, being in those places, because 80% of it is just being where things are happening and not being afraid to look stupid and just saying, hey, I'm this person. I want to tell you that I appreciate the stuff that you're doing. And I'm looking forward to seeing you around, right? Because when you say that, it means you're supposed to be there and you will be there the next time. And then what I do is I systematically bump into those people over and over again until I become familiar. It's not about like, please give me your money today. I need like my lights are off, right? My lights will be off and I'll be in the spot with a suit on looking crispy as ever, right? Because I want you to know that I will be there. And when people don't have time for me, I want them to feel like, wow, I missed an opportunity if they don't get back to me. So the next 40 times, they will see me and I will remain present. And that's always been my philosophy around how do you meet those folks. That's how I got a job like this, right? Not knowing the mayor, but consistently running into the mayor, right? Consistently being in places where you go, that's Eric. That's the guy that's there. Mm-hmm. But the last point on that is be actionable. Yep. When you are called. When you are called, do the work.
Seize the opportunity.
I've made that mistake not being ready, right? Be ready.
So it sounds like other than knowing that first, $100 millionaire to get you in the room, being ready and seizing the opportunity and one following up as well.
I didn't know him at
first. True. That is true. And I think I can speak to that because Jeff, I'm moderating this. I'm the chair of the RAB, and Jeff was a speaker on Tuesday, I think it was. And I've already drafted an email to send to him to say, hey, Jeff, there's a couple of things that you spoke about. I was questioning, like he said about 401k. I had questions as to why he felt the way that he felt. And so, again, just following up, reaching out, and through repetition, that's the only way that these people will and these individuals will recognize you over time.
And bring some joy, man. People so serious all the time. Bring some joy to the party. It's a party, right? Life is not that deep. Nothing I'm doing is that serious. I'm the chief storyteller, not the chief surgeon, right? Dr. Fauci's job is important. Mine is fine.
True. Right. True. That is true. Or don't always ask for something as well. Be able to offer something, I think, is also important.
Yeah.
So we got a couple more minutes before we get to the happy hour. So I will give you, 60 seconds to kind of leave with some parting words. Any advice that you have for those coming up afterwards or your peers?
In the middle of last year, I slowed down. I had been working for probably 10 years straight without a vacation for real, maybe one. I had no money. I was super broke. And I had made a lot of money and lost a lot of money and had a lot of employees and lost a lot of employees and led well and led poorly. And I had burned out. And I felt like I was doing things to feed the life that I created, and it wasn't even a life that I wanted. And I made a decision. No matter what happens, I will no longer do things that don't take me in the direction of the places I want to go. And I decided I wasn't going to just do cheap graphics to eat, and because you become what you do. Right? You're the cheap graphic guy if you do the cheap graphics. It doesn't matter if you tell people you're not. I can't say, oh, I'm not the cheap graphics dude, and then turn around and do it. And so I stopped taking work. And that almost destroyed me. Truly almost destroyed my life. And then out of the sky, this chief storyteller position came out because I still continue to write my articles. I wrote an article about Black spaces in Detroit, the kind of article you can't write when you work for somebody, right? About, because somebody was like, what are you doing? But it was because of that I believe I came onto the radar. And so what I would say is do things that feed the life that you want. And stop doing things that don't. Really think about the type of work ethic that it requires and the type of work, right? You could dig for gold in a place where there is no gold forever and still not find gold. Or you can dig for a short time in a place where the gold is and strike it, right? It's not about always the amount of work. It's about the strategy behind the work. Did you plan for it? Did you dig in the right location? And that is what I would hope people would take away from it. It really helped me reorient my mind. And it helped me reevaluate what I wanted out of what I was doing. So that's my over dramatic philosophy on.
Awesome. Thank you, Eric. Definitely, it was a pleasure to have you. And before we close out, again, I wanted to thank the sponsors one more time. The presenting sponsors, E&Y, Ernst & Young, DESE, Detroit Employment Solutions Corporation, and GM Financial. And so this week has been awesome, Eric. I think you have culminated it greatly. And one of the last few words that you said was, do the work and live the life that you want to foresee for yourself. Again, I'm paraphrasing, but I didn't say it as eloquently, but I think that's the overall theme of this entire week is do the work that you want to see for your life. And there's resources out there to help you do it. So thank you all for attending.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, I didn't say. Don't forget, House of Pure Vim will be back in 5 minutes. Regina Gaines will be on here to describe the different types of wines that are available.
On the show now.
Welcome back. Hey, Regina.
Hey.
Kelly.
Hi.
How are you all?
I'm excited. We're starting the party and we ending
right.
Hey.
So, for those who have stuck around, and for those who really know me, I'm a firm believer in work hard, play hard. And so this time is going to be 10-15 minutes to allow Regina and Shelly to explain the different type of wines that are available and out there. If you recall from day one, Regina was with us, and she's definitely one of those who's who. She left us with our first takeaway, the I got you moment. Being an entrepreneur is the ultimate I got you moment, because you've planned for the unexpected and you're prepared and taking advantage from it.
Oh, yeah.
So without any further ado, I will let Regina and Shelly take it away. Enjoy.
So one of the great things about being an entrepreneur, the first thing you need to do is have an amazing team. And what we've been lucky and fortunate about at the House of Pure Ben, I have something that is in rare. It's called sommeliers. And we've actually have 4 sommeliers in our store. And one, is virtual. Her name is Claudia Taji. People know her. She founded her. So she was one of the first master sommeliers. And then we have the person that we deal with on the day-to-day. And this is Shelly. So Shelly is my right hand, and then some days she's my left hand. So what we're going to do here is we're going to have a happy hour. In our happy hour, we're going to talk about the different ways of rosés. So one of the things that the Junior Achievement asked me to kind of close out this happy hour was to do so because we were basically going to talk about the different elements of wines. And it's basically 4 core groups that you have. You have a red, a white, a rosé, and dessert. Mm-hmm. And what Shelly's going to do today is talk about it in ways that you can actually get involved. So as we sit here with our glasses,
happy hour.
Happy hour. It's 5 o'clock here, but it's been 5 o'clock for us for quite some time because normally we get to work and the first thing we do is try to figure out what amazing wines we're going to sell in the store. So Shelly, let's get started. What are we going to get started with first?
Absolutely. The very first thing, and generally when you're going through wines, you're going to start with the lightest wine and go to the biggest, heaviest, boldest wine last. Just like with food, you're going to start with something light that is delicate on the palate, and then you're going to move to your heavy, your steak, your gumbo, your jambalaya later. So the first wine that we're going to try tonight is the McBride Sisters Black Girl Magic Riesling.
Hey, and Black Girl Magic, which is just like amazing. And one of the things that we wanted to do in showing you this is that let's talk about why people drink whites and what is the pairing to why people drink whites. Mm-hmm. So first of all, how many white varietals are there?
Thousands. And here's the thing, you can make a white wine from a red grape. And the most famous example is just about any champagne that you've had. So for 99% of the varietals, the color comes from the skin. So if you express a grape, if you press a grape and you don't allow it contact with the skin, you get a white wine. But we're not going to get into that now. We're going to get into the gorgeous, fun whites that we enjoy drinking. Riesling is what we're going to talk about right now. And Riesling can be really, really sweet. It can be a dessert wine. It can be bone dry. And there are a tiny handful of wines, and I'm a rule breaker.
Oh, I'm definitely a rule breaker. I break all the rules.
And we love finding wines that break those traditional rules. There are a tiny handful of Rieslings that you can pair with a steak because they have the alcohol, they have the acidity, they have everything in there that you need to break down that protein so it interacts beautifully on your palate. This Riesling from the McBride Sisters has a foot in the sweet world. It has a foot in the dry world. This is a sweet wine for dry wine drinkers. This is a dry wine for sweet wine drinkers. And if you like spicy food, this is the wine where you look at your bae or your bestie and you say, I know tonight we usually get a 6. And spice level, we're taking it up to an 11.
Absolutely. So,
and trying it with this.
So, other words, I can eat this with seafood gumbo, with all the Cajun likings that I want to, and then I can finish it out with grandma's pound cake. Don't you love it? Don't you love it?
And then with a little dark chocolate cheese and fruit at the end if you're feeling continental.
Yes. So that's the cool thing about, you know, certain whites, certain things. And we brought Black Girl Magic up because we're so proud of the McBride sisters.
So proud of these girls.
The entrepreneurship that they have with them is just wonderful. And when you talk about entrepreneur experiences, it was like one of the wines that we can actually talk about, brag about, discuss.
And the trials that they have gone through, and I wish I had a can in front of me and I don't, but with a lot of their professional trials as women of color in the corporate world, they realized that it is not a level playing field out there for women, period, in the business world. So they developed a product called She Can after they came through this great corporate battle. And oh, here's one of our, oh, Alicia, thank you. Here is the She Can. So first of all, canned wine. Yes, you can take canned wine seriously because aluminum is thinner than glass. This is actually half a bottle of wine. But the McBride sisters have set up a foundation to support women in the wine and spirits business. And the sales of this can, the proceeds from the sales of She Can go to fund those grants that you can get. So they are doing it. They have the Black Girl Magic line, which was inspired when they heard Michelle Obama use the line in one of her speeches. And these ladies are kicking ass in the wine industry, and their wine is wonderful.
Let's go to my favorite topic.
Okay.
Red wine.
Ah, yes.
That's my favorite topic. And of course, I'm breaking all the rules because I drink red wine with any and everything. And that's the funny thing about Americans. We're not traditional at all in terms of how we drink wines. We kind of drink wines more so to how we prepare and season the food. So that's why we can actually do red wine with some things. And so let me tell you what I did this today. Anyway, first of all, best kept secret, we are drinking a red wine from Washington. And Washington, the state of Washington is the best kept secret because you're basically getting Napa style wines for half the price. Mm-hmm. So clearly this wine, no lie, would probably be in Napa Valley for $100 and something. And I like this because we specialize in boutique wines in our store. So like, for instance, we're selling this, and as you can see, I don't know if you guys can see, but it only says that they make 300 cases, period. So one of the things that we like about our store is majority of the wines that you get into our store, you wouldn't find other places. So we have a couple things that we believe in, especially with our red wines. The size of the production matters. Mm-hmm. The vintage matters.
Smaller the better. It's one of the few areas.
And we don't think you're a true wine until every vintage that you make tastes a little bit differently. Yes. So that is something we dear on. So I get a famous questions when we talk about red wine. Camus. And I'd be like, Camus ain't a wine.
Camus is not a wine.
It's a concoction. Mm-hmm. Concoction. Mm-hmm. And they'd be like, no,
there are so many better things that you can spend your money on if you want to drink Camus that have that smooth, luscious finish that are so much better made. I mean, you know, just that to me is the C word.
So what is the one thing that we always tell people when they say, do you sell Camus? So we say, you can go to.
You can go to Paso Robles, you can go to Napa, you can come, if you come.
And we don't sell nothing where Target sells wine at. Except for Black Girl Magic.
Except for Black Girl Magic.
Yeah, we sell that. So that's the cool thing. So one of the things that we like about wines is that each red wine has like a texture. And they also have certain earthiness. Sometimes they're fruit forward. Sometimes they even can be a little bit sweet. In red wines, they have a lot of different grapes. So you got like your Syrah, your Petit Syrah, your Cabernet Sauvignons. You have Bordeaux, which is a combination of 2 to 4 different grapes. You have Malbecs. Mm-hmm. You have Cabernet Francs. You have Petit Verdot, which I love. You have Merlot. You have Shiraz. You just Grenaches.
And then you have some of the lighter varietals. And, you know, see, this is really heavy and inky. You get into some of those Italian varietals, you get into Pinot Noir, you get into Gamay, you're going to be able to see through. And, you know, if I held the glass over my hand, I could see my hand through that. Does that mean it's a weak wine? No, not at all. You cannot judge a wine by its appearance. So some of these wines that are lighter in color that you can see through, have amazing depth and complexity. And in the case of a lot of them, like Nebbiolo, that tannic structure that you get in these really big, deeply colored red wines.
So let's give them a shortcut about picking red wine. So people also ask me, when you go to a restaurant and you're picking a wine and that waiter or waitress made you feel stupid because you're not supposed to know, supposed to know, or you really didn't know, we always tell you that safe picks, Italian. Italian wines are the basic safe pick if you're trying to pick a red wine and you're at a restaurant. And we love Italy because the wines are riper. They got some smooth finishes. It doesn't never have an after bite. And it's not a bad vintage ever. And I think a lot of it has to do with the
amazing
climate. So when you go to a restaurant and you want to pick something good and you're not really clear, and when in doubt, go Italy. Okay, let's talk about a very complex subject.
Okay.
Rosé. People they look at the color and they say, is it sweet? Is it dry?
And there's a lot of people, for me, my first wine that I bought as an adult was White Zinfandel. And I refer to White Zinfandel as the gateway drug. It was that cheap kind of throwaway wine, but it really opened up this great world for me. Rosés are so varied and complex. You can have a rosé that is really rich. You can have a rosé that is lean, mean, and dry, like that personal trainer that has you out there at 6 o'clock in the morning doing the rope thing you do. I don't do that.
Oh, I do that.
Yeah, the tires. No.
See, I'm working on my muscle.
Rosés are an entire class of wine by itself, and that is one of those things that you cannot judge the wine by its color. I love to drink rosés all year. There are beautiful rosés that go with Thanksgiving, and my favorite pairing for a rosé is a snowstorm, a big chair, and a book.
With rosé. But you know what people don't know about rosé? And then we're going to have to end this.
What's that?
Rosés are wines that are made from red grapes.
That's right.
Most people don't know that.
That's right.
So that's the fun thing. And rosés is all over the world. They come from different vintages, different segments, different everything. So rosés is kind of funny. And then we're going to finish it off with something that we call sweet wines, dessert wines. And dessert wines are kind of fun because they can actually be in the forms of champagne.
Like that.
Like this
Vin Fuente.
Right? Or they can be in the form of,
just a regular wine. They can be in the
be
form of a fortified wine, like the cognac wines.
Yep. Cognac wines. Or they can be high in alcohol content, like ports. Or they can be like Moscatos, which is low in alcohol content. And yes, Moscato is a sweet wine. It's a dessert wine. And it's go best with that sweet potato pie.
And one of the jokes among seasoned wine drinkers and sommeliers is that you start drinking sweet wine, and as you go through your wine tasting journey, you come back to sweet wines. I actually made a graphic for my wine tasting class called The Evolution of Shelley's Palate.
Which we do on Monday nights. Virtual, live, free. Most people don't know that about us, but that's how we pivoted. So for entrepreneurs, we know how we pivoted and stay in business what it is. So we're going to close this out with this. First of all, congratulations to the Junior Achievement of Detroit. I think this week has been fabulous.
Cheers.
As an entrepreneur, I am very grateful to Jason Lee and some time that we've done with him. I've known Jason for quite some time. My mother used to work with him at Depset.
Really?
So he's been down for the kids and the young adults for a very long time.
That's amazing.
He's just sweet. He's just amazing. Yeah, I like that. And so one of the things that when your family asks you to do something, you do it. So I want to say congratulations. We have an amazing wine club. Shelly is on virtual every Monday teaching these classes. And, it's been a tough time through COVID, but we made it. And for those who have continued to support us, we want to tell you thank you very much for all that you do. And we are grateful. And I think we're just waiting on David to come back. David? Hi!
It's like magic. We appear.
What are you drinking?
Black girl magic.
Awesome. Thank you all. I think your energy was felt throughout through the screen. So I appreciate your passion for this. I personally am a cognac or a whiskey on the rocks type of person. So when
cognac wine.
I heard that.
And they're amazing.
I heard that. So I will have to try that. And I know something new next time I go out to, to dinner. So with that being said, thank you to Shelly and Regina, House of Pure Wine, or Pure Vin.
Absolutely.
HouseOfPureVin.com.
Thank you for that shout out.
33 Woodward Avenue.
Don't be humble. Don't be humble. Continue to brag.
Downtown, across the street from Shinola Hotel.
There you go. And everybody that's been with us throughout the week and all the behind the scenes people, thank you. The sponsors, DESC, EY, GM Financials, and the many, many other sponsors. Definitely thank you. And hopefully we'll see you all back next year in person. Fingers crossed. But take care.
Bye. Congratulations, Junior Achievement Extra.
Thank you.
Pivot.
Thank you.
Cheers to you
Cheers.
guys.
I wish I had a glass, but cheers.
Most importantly, everybody that's watched this, we are doing discounts, JA 2020. So feel free. You got to the end of October to use it.
Yes.
So just on our website, you can order online, apply your discount, and that's our gift on behalf of Junior Achievement.
Yes.
21. Come and see.
Yes, definitely. Over 21 only, but use that JA 2020 coupon, and I believe it's 10% off, right?
2020 is the code.
Yep, absolutely. And 10% off wine, that's a lot of money.
Big deal.
That's a big deal.
It is a big deal. We appreciate it. Thank you all.
Thank you.